Vanished, the fierce alien queen's daughters were found curled up on the human's chest. The royal flagship Carvale drifted above the blue planet like a black crown. Its hull was a smooth curve of living metal, marked with old battle scars and fresh gold seals. Inside, the air always smelled faintly of cold stone and sharp spice, an odor meant to remind everyone who ruled. Queen Sareth the Fierce liked it that way. She sat on her high seat of carved bone glass, her long fingers resting on the armrests like claws at peace. The court around her stood in careful silence, generals in heavy armor, advisors with glowing tablets, and priests who spoke only when ordered. No one dared breathe too loudly when the queen's eyes turned. Tonight, the queen's eyes were not calm. Tonight, her daughters were missing. They were not ordinary heirs. They were twins, Clis and Vera, born during a solar storm, raised in a palace that smelled of iron and victory. The twins were famous before they could speak. Their first words had been a battle chant. Their first laughter had come when a training drone exploded. They were the Empire's future. They were also the Queen's weakness, though she would never admit it. A captain stepped forward and bowed low enough that his forehead almost touched the floor. "Your Radiance," he said, voice tight. "We have sealed all decks, no exits, no launch bays, no void portals. All systems confirm the princesses are not aboard." A low murmur moved through the court like wind across dry leaves. The Queen lifted one hand. Silence returned at once. "Explain," she said. The captain swallowed. They were last seen in the royal nursery sector 2 hours before the third bell. The corridor cameras went blind for 37 seconds. After that, they were gone. 37 seconds, the Queen repeated, slow and sharp. "In a ship that watches every breath." "Yes, your Radiance." The Queen rose. The room felt colder as she stood. She was tall, her horns sweeping back like blades, her skin a deep ash color with bright markings that looked like lightning cracks. When she walked, people moved out of her path without thinking. "A failure," she said. "A disgrace." General Rokan, a massive warrior with one eye replaced by a red lens, stepped forward. "Your Radiance, permission to search all crew. Anyone could." The Queen cut him off. "Anyone could not." Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of a falling mountain. "These daughters are not children who wander. They do not hide under tables. They do not get lost. If they are gone, then someone has taken them." She looked at the advisors. "What do the sensors say?" An advisor tapped his tablet, trembling. "No teleport signature. No cloaked shuttle, no hull breach, no airlock cycling, no internal portal use. It is as if the princesses stopped existing." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Then make them exist again," he bowed hard. "Yes, your Radiance." The Queen turned toward the hall doors. "Bring me the head of security. Bring me the nursery guards. Bring me the engineers who manage cameras. Bring me everyone who had a hand near those 37 seconds. The court scattered like startled birds. Within minutes, the great central hall became a place of movement and fear. Guards dragged in the nursery watchers. Engineers were pulled from their stations. A priest of the Empire's old laws arrived, beads clacking, chanting protection verses under his breath. The head of security, Commander Jethval, entered with a stiff posture. He was known for never failing. His armor was clean, his blade sharp, his face unreadable. He stopped in front of the Queen and knelt. "Your Radiance," he said, "I accept full responsibility. My security net should not have a hole. It will be corrected." The Queen stared at him for a long moment. "Tell me what happened," she said. Commander Jethval's voice stayed steady. "We reviewed the corridor feed. The system did not record an intruder." But the camera blindness was not a simple outage. It was deliberate. Something rewrote the data, not only deleting images but changing the time stamps. The Queen's mouth tightened. "A skilled enemy." "Yes, your Radiance." "An enemy inside the ship," General Rokan added, eager to show usefulness. "We must assume sabotage, perhaps one of the conquered species." The Queen's gaze snapped to him. The general fell silent. Commander Jethval continued, "We traced the rewrite pattern. It matches a style we have not seen before. The code uses human logic structures." The room froze. Several advisors exchanged quick, nervous looks. Humans were small, soft, newly encountered, not a threat. The Empire used human laborers on distant stations and sometimes carried a few as minor assistants because they were adaptable and good with repairs. Humans did not fight the Empire. They barely survived it. The Queen's voice sharpened. "Human." "Yes, your Radiance," Commander Jethval said. "There are 17 humans assigned to this ship. Most are in the maintenance layers. One is closer." Closer? The Queen asked. Commander Jethval lifted his eyes carefully. A human named Elias Mar. He is a civilian contractor. He was brought aboard to help tune the atmosphere recyclers because his species has experience with fragile systems. A few guards snorted quietly at the idea. Experience with fragile systems was a polite way of saying humans broke easily. The Queen did not laugh. "Where is this Elias Mar?" she asked. Commander Jethval hesitated. He was in Section D14 when the princesses vanished. He should have been logged there, but his tracker shows a dead spot at the same time as the camera blindness. The Queen's hand curled into a fist. "So," she said softly, "in the same 37 seconds my daughters vanish and a human becomes invisible." No one spoke. The Queen walked down the steps of her platform. Each step seemed to echo longer than it should. She stopped in front of Commander Jethval. "You will find them," she said. "If my daughters are harmed, I will crack this ship open and let the stars drink your bones." Commander Jethval bowed his head. "Understood, your radiance." The Queen turned away and began to pace, slow and controlled. Her anger did not explode. It sharpened. That was worse. In the Empire's history, queens had burned cities for less. Queen Sareth had once erased an entire moon colony because an official misread her schedule. Her rule was not built on mercy, but her daughters were more than pride. They were the only creatures who could approach her without fear. Kliss and Vera were loud, wild, and fearless even around her. They climbed her throne steps. They stole her ceremonial rings. They tried to bite her guards when they were bored. When the Queen corrected them, they laughed. Now the palace hall felt wrong without their noise. A young priest stepped forward, voice shaking. "Your Radiance, perhaps this is a test from the void spirits." "Perhaps the princesses have been taken into." The Queen's glare stopped him mid-word. "If spirits have them," she said, "I will hunt spirits." The priest stepped back, pale. Commander Jethval rose. "We will begin with the human. If he is responsible, he will break quickly." The Queen paused. "Do not underestimate an animal simply because it is small." The commander bowed. "No, your Radiance." A new officer rushed in, breathless. "Report." The Queen turned. "Speak." The officer swallowed. "We found something in the nursery sector, a scent trail. Not chemical, something biological. The princess's markers follow it. It leads down into maintenance layers." Maintenance layers were deep inside the ship, far from royal halls. There the air was warmer, the lights dimmer, the walls lined with pipes that hissed and pulsed. That was where workers lived. That was where humans worked. The Queen's nostrils flared. "Take me," she said. The corridor to the maintenance decks was narrow. The walls changed from polished black to dull gray. The lights hummed more loudly. The guards moved in a tight formation around the Queen, weapons raised. General Rokan walked at her side, heavy boots striking metal. "If a human has done this, your Radiance, allow me to make an example. Their bodies are fragile. Their joints." "Enough," the Queen said. He shut his mouth. As they descended, the ship's sounds changed. In royal zones, silence was a rule. Here the ship breathed. Fans turned. Water ran. Distant machines clanked like slow drums. Commander Jethval signaled and a squad split ahead, scanning. They passed doors with small signs. Some were in the Empire's sharp symbols. Others were in human writing, rounded letters that looked almost childish. The Queen's gaze caught on one door, EMARR Air SYSDMS. She stopped. Every guard froze. Commander Jethval raised a hand, preparing to breach. From inside the room came a sound, not a weapon charge, not a scream, a soft, steady sound like breathing, like quiet sleep. The Queen narrowed her eyes. "Open it," she ordered. Commander Jethval nodded. Two guards moved forward and pressed a device to the door. The lock beeped once. The door slid aside. Warm air spilled out. The room was simple and human-sized. Tools lay neatly on a table. A small heater glowed in one corner. A blanket was folded on a narrow bed. And there on that bed lay the human. Elias Mar was on his back, one arm resting across his chest. His face looked exhausted, his dark hair messy, his eyes closed as if he had not slept in days. But the Queen did not look at his face first. She looked at what lay on him. Two small forms curled tightly against his chest, their tails wrapped around his ribs like living ropes. Their sharp claws were not digging. Their teeth were not bared, their eyes were shut. Kliss and Vera, the princesses of the Empire, alive, unharmed, sleeping. For a full second, the room held its breath. General Rokan made a choking sound. A guard whispered, "Impossible." The Queen stepped forward, slow, as if she feared the scene might break if she moved too fast. The human did not wake. The twins did not wake. Kliss's face, usually fierce, always ready to bite, was relaxed. Vera's ears, normally stiff and alert, were folded back and calm. Their breathing was even. Their bodies rose and fell gently with the human's chest. The queen's throat tightened in a way she did not like. Commander Jethval whispered, "Your Radiance, do we—" The queen lifted a hand, stopping him. She stared at the human, then at her daughters. Her mind searched for traps, poison, illusion, drugs, some hidden device, but there were no restraints, no chains, no signs of fear. Only sleep. The queen leaned closer. She saw the human's fingers twitch slightly as if he was dreaming. His hand shifted, almost without thought, and rested more securely over the twins' backs, as if to shield them from cold. Vera made a small sound in her sleep and pressed closer. The queen's eyes widened a fraction. Her daughters had chosen this. She drew in a slow breath, and her voice, when it came, was very quiet. "Wake him," she said, but carefully. Commander Jethval nodded and stepped forward, and in that moment the human's eyes opened. He blinked at the armed aliens filling his doorway, at the queen's tall shadow, at the cold gleam of weapons. Then he looked down at his chest. At the two alien princesses curled into him like frightened kittens who had finally found warmth. The human swallowed once. He did not scream. He did not reach for a weapon. He simply said softly, as if afraid to wake them, "Please, don't scare them." The queen's face turned to stone. Outside the door, the ship's alarms began to rise again as more systems registered the impossible truth. But inside the small room, the galaxy had changed, quietly on a human's heartbeat. And Queen Sareth the Fierce realized something that made her anger hesitate for the first time in centuries. This human was not holding her daughters. Her daughters were holding him. The room stayed silent after the human spoke. "Please, don't scare them." The words were soft. Not a command, not a threat, just a request. Queen Sareth stood very still. Around her, armed guards shifted, confused. They had faced screaming rebels, roaring beasts, and dying enemies. None of those things prepared them for a small human asking politely while holding the Empire's most dangerous heirs like sleeping children. Commander Jethval broke the silence. "Human," he said coldly, "you are in the presence of the Queen. You will lower your eyes and release the princesses." The human, Elias Mar, looked up slowly. His eyes were tired, ringed with dark shadows, but they were steady. He did not bow. He did not move his arms. "If I move," Elias said quietly, "they'll wake up scared." They didn't sleep before, not really. That sentence hit the room harder than any insult. Queen Sareth took one slow step forward, her guards tensed, ready to strike at a flick of her claw. "You speak as if you know my daughters," the queen said. Elias swallowed. His chest rose and fell carefully so the twins would not stir. "I didn't at first. They found me," General Rokan snarled. "Lies, royal blood does not find prey." Elias glanced at the general, then back to the queen. "They weren't hunting, they were running." That word made the queen's spine stiffen. Running, Kliss and Vera did not run, they chased. "Explain," the queen said. Elias took a breath. "I work in the lower decks, air systems. That night I heard noises in the ducts, scraping, heavy but scared." The queen's eyes flicked to her commander. The ductways were narrow, even guards avoided them. "I thought it was an animal," Elias continued. "I went to check because pressure was dropping. When I opened the panel, they fell out." He paused, remembering. "They hit the floor hard. They were ready to fight, teeth out, claws out. I froze." One of the twins shifted slightly, her tail tightening. Elias stopped talking at once, his breathing slowing. The movement calmed her and she relaxed again. Several guards noticed. The queen noticed everything. "And yet," the queen said, "you live." Elias nodded. "Because they stopped." "Stopped," General Rokan repeated, disbelief thick in his voice. "They looked at me," Elias said, like they didn't know what to do next." The queen felt something twist inside her chest. She remembered the twins' first training session, how they had attacked everything that moved until exhaustion took them. "What happened then?" the queen asked. "I sat down," Elias said. "Slowly, I didn't grab them, I didn't shout, I just made myself smaller." The queen raised a brow, smaller. "They circled me," Elias continued. "Hissing, watching, one of them touched my arm with a claw, just the tip, I didn't pull away." Commander Jethval frowned. "Why?" Elias shrugged carefully. "If I had, she might have thought I was attacking." That logic was sound, disturbingly so. "And then," the queen pressed. "They climbed," Elias said, "on me like kids testing a chair. They listened to my chest, my heartbeat." The queen's breath caught just slightly. "They stayed," Elias finished. Wouldn't leave. Wouldn't attack, just stayed close. Silence returned, thick and heavy. Queen Sareth stepped closer, towering over the bed. She studied her daughters' faces. Their brows were smooth, their jaws unclenched. She had never seen them like this, not even as hatchlings. "You took them from the nursery," the queen said. Elias shook his head slowly. "No, they were already gone. Something scared them up there. Loud sounds, bright lights, too many guards." The queen's claws flexed. The nursery had been reinforced that very day for a weapons test nearby. A mistake. "They ran," Elias said softly. "I think they smelled me. Humans smell different, warm, organic." He hesitated, then added, "Safe, maybe." The word hung in the air. Safe. The queen had conquered worlds. She had never been described as safe. General Rokan scoffed. "You expect us to believe royal predators chose a human for comfort?" Elias looked at him, then down at the twins. "I don't expect anything. I just know what happened." Queen Sareth raised a hand. The general fell silent. She leaned closer, lowering herself slightly so her eyes were level with Elias' S. "Human," she said, "do you understand what you hold?" Elias nodded once. "Yes. And you are not afraid?" Elias thought for a moment. "I was." At first, but fear doesn't help scared children. Children, several officers stiffened. No one had ever called the princesses that. The queen should have been furious. Instead, something deep inside her shifted. She straightened. "Commander Jethval?" "Yes, your radiance." "Order all weapons lowered." The commander hesitated. "Your radiance?" "Now." Weapons slowly dropped. The room exhaled. Elias noticed and relaxed just a little. The queen turned her attention fully to him. "You have committed many crimes by our laws," she said. "Unauthorized contact, removal of royal heirs, failure to report." Elias nodded. "I know. And yet," the queen continued, "my daughters are unharmed, calmer than they have ever been." She studied him again. The human was thin, fragile, no armor, no claws, no implants. "How long have they slept?" she asked. Elias glanced at a small clock on the wall. "Almost 6 hours." 6 hours. The twins had never slept more than 20 minutes at a time. The queen closed her eyes for a single heartbeat. "Medical team," she ordered. Quiet entry. No instruments near the bed. A medic stepped forward nervously. "Your radiance scans require—" "Observation only," the queen snapped. The medic nodded quickly. As the medic scanned from a distance, Queen Sareth noticed something else. Her daughters were holding onto the human's clothing, not loosely, with purpose. "They don't want to be alone," Elias said quietly, following her gaze. "Every time I tried to stand earlier, they woke up angry." The queen believed him. "Did they speak?" she asked. Elias shook his head. "No words, but sounds, questions maybe." "How do you know?" "They ask the same way human babies do," he said. "Not with words, with tone." The queen's jaw tightened. Her daughters were not babies, and yet the medic cleared his throat. "Your radiance, their stress markers are low, extremely low, heart rhythm synchronized with the humans." The queen opened her eyes slowly. "Synchronized," she repeated. "Yes, as if they're regulating off him." The queen looked at Elias again, this time with something new in her gaze. Interest. "You are not a soldier," she said. "No, not a strategist. No, not a scientist. No, and yet you have done what my empire could not." Elias shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't do anything special." "That," the queen said softly, "may be the problem." She turned to her guards. "Clear this corridor, no alarms, no shouting." "Yes, your radiance." The guards moved swiftly. The queen faced Elias once more. "For now, you will remain here." Elias nodded. "That's fine. You will not leave this room." "I wasn't planning to. You will not attempt escape." Elias gave a small, tired smile. "I can't even stand up." One of the twins made a small sound, curling tighter. The queen watched that motion, then surprised everyone, including herself. She reached out slowly. Every guard froze. Her claw hovered inches from Kliss's head. The twin did not wake. The queen gently touched her daughter's crest with one finger, warm, alive, at peace. The queen pulled her hand back quickly, as if burned. She straightened, regaining her full height. "Human," she said, voice steady once more, "if my daughters wake frightened, you will answer for it." Elias met her eyes. "I understand." "And if they wake calm?" the queen asked. Elias hesitated. "Then maybe you should listen to them." The queen studied him for a long moment. Then she turned and walked to the door. "Commander," she said, "post silent guards. No one enters without my word." "Yes, your radiance." She paused at the doorway and looked back one last time. The human lay still. Her daughters slept on his chest. The room felt balanced. Something ancient and powerful shifted in Queen Sareth's mind. For the first time, she did not know whether to punish a human or protect him. The maintenance decks of the Carvale were always noisy. Pipes hissed, fans whirred, and distant machinery clanged. It was a place the royal family rarely visited. Here, humans worked among humming engines and glowing control panels, small and fragile compared to the Empire's usual strength. Elias Mar had been assigned to these decks for months. The corridors were familiar, yet now, with the Queen's guards posted outside the small room where the twins slept, every sound felt louder, every shadow suspicious. He lay on a cot, Kliss and Vera curled against his chest, feeling their warmth and quiet breathing. His heart still raced, but not with fear, something else. Responsibility. He realized he was the only thing between these two powerful alien children and a universe that expected them to be warriors, not vulnerable beings who could finally trust someone. The door hissed, opening slowly. Commander Jethval stepped inside with two medics. They did not approach the bed, but observed from a careful distance. Their presence, usually intimidating, now felt unnecessary. Elias watched them silently, muscles tense but still careful not to wake the twins. "Your Radiance," Jethval began, though his tone was hesitant. "Scans confirm stress levels have dropped. The twins' nervous systems are synchronizing with the humans. It is unprecedented." Queen Sareth had not left. She remained just outside the room, observing from the doorway. Her expression was unreadable, but her mind raced. What force could calm her daughters so completely? What human instinct could match centuries of Empire training and alien ferocity? Elias shifted slightly. "They're not scared," he said softly. "They don't feel like they need to fight right now. They feel safe with me." The medics exchanged nervous glances. Jethval's jaw tightened. "Safe," he repeated. "They are the Queen's heirs. They are warriors bred for dominance." "And yet," Elias replied, "they chose not to fight. I didn't make them. They chose me." That word, chose, hung in the air like a challenge. The Queen's fingers flexed. She had been a ruler for centuries, commanding loyalty through fear and power, yet here was a human, fragile and unarmed, who had inspired choice instead of obedience. "You are claiming," she said finally, voice sharp, "that these children willingly came to you?" Elias nodded. "Yes," the Queen studied him. There were no weapons, no tricks visible on his body. Just a human, small and fragile in the middle of an alien world, holding the most dangerous creatures in her empire like they were his own siblings. "You understand," she said carefully, "that if anything happens to them, I will hold you accountable. Even if it is not your fault, even if you did nothing wrong, the consequence is severe." Elias looked down at the twins, their breathing slow and even, eyes still closed. "I understand, I just want them to be okay." A brief pause, no one spoke. The Queen's mind raced. For centuries, humans had been considered weak, short-lived, inconsequential. They had survived on planets the Empire barely valued. Yet here one human, without a single weapon, without armor, without power, had done what elite warriors could not, earned the trust of the fiercest heirs in the galaxy. Jethval broke the silence. "Your Radiance, what are your orders?" The Queen's eyes met Elias's. There was something in her gaze, a mixture of curiosity, caution, and something she had not felt in centuries, uncertainty. "Leave them be," she said finally. "Observe, report only what you see." The medics blinked. Jethval's mouth twitched as if wanting to argue, but no sound came out. The Queen's word was law. Elias exhaled quietly. It was a small victory, but he knew it could change in an instant. These twins were not ordinary children. One wrong move, one careless gesture, and the room could erupt in claws and teeth. He adjusted slightly, careful to keep the twins comfortable. Kliss stirred, her small hand brushing against his chest. Vera hummed softly in her sleep, a sound that was almost human. Elias smiled faintly. "You're both safe," he whispered. "I won't let anything happen." Outside, the Queen watched, a growing unease settling in her chest. There was more at play here than simple luck. Humans, she realized, possessed a strength her empire had never anticipated. The ability to connect, to influence, to calm without dominance. The medics began their distant observation. Vital signs, neural activity, and stress levels were recorded, but Elias ignored them. He focused on the twins, noting how each tiny movement, stretching, curling, breathing, was synchronized with his own heart rhythm. Hours passed. No alarms, no interruptions. Only the quiet hum of the maintenance decks and the rhythmic breathing of the heirs and the human who held them. Then a subtle sound. The door hissed again. This time it was not Jethval or the medics. The Queen stepped in. Her presence filled the small room. She did not sit. She did not kneel, she only watched, silent eyes scanning every detail. Elias looked up. "Your radiance," he said softly. They're okay, they're calm." The Queen's gaze shifted to the twins. She knelt slightly to bring herself closer to their level. Her long fingers hovered over Kliss's head, then Vera's, not threatening, not commanding, curious, hesitant. "You are small," she said, her voice softer than usual. "And yet they allow you to hold them. Tell me why." Elias looked at her. "I don't know, I didn't tell them to. I didn't touch them until they came to me. They chose this." The Queen's jaw tightened. She had never been refused loyalty before. She had never faced creatures who made decisions against instinctive aggression. And yet here were her daughters, willingly resting on a human's chest. A flicker of worry passed through her mind. What if this human could influence them, could change them, could weaken them? The thought was dangerous, almost intolerable, yet there was no denying the truth. The twins were calmer than they had ever been, alive, unafraid, and cooperative in a way she had never witnessed. "Observe them carefully," she said, voice regaining its usual authority. "Record every heartbeat, every neural spike, every motion. I want a complete report." "No interference," Jethval nodded. "Understood." Elias kept still. The Queen's words were not a threat. They were instructions, but there was something unspoken. She would test him. She would watch. She would determine if this human was a threat or something entirely new. Hours blurred into days. The twins remained with Elias. They ate minimally, drank water cautiously, and rarely spoke. Yet every small sound they made was mirrored by Elias. A shift of a limb, a soft sigh, a blink. They seemed to feed on his calm. And in turn, he learned to read them, anticipating movements, adjusting his posture, speaking softly in tones they seemed to understand. One evening, as the maintenance decks glowed dim orange from the artificial lights, Elias heard a soft hiss. Kliss had woken slightly, her eyes wide and alert. Normally, this would have been dangerous, but Elias remained still. He simply shifted his hand slightly, a quiet reassurance. Kliss studied him for a moment. Then she curled back, resting her head against his chest again. Vera, sensing her sister's movement, adjusted slightly, closing her eyes once more. Elias exhaled quietly. A small smile formed. He whispered, "See, you're safe, I'm not leaving." Unknown to him, the Queen watched from a nearby observation port. Her expression was unreadable. A mix of caution and something she had not anticipated. Respect. This human, fragile and soft, had done what none of her generals, warriors, or scientists could. He had earned the trust of the most dangerous heirs in her empire, without a single weapon, without authority, without fear. For the first time in centuries, she wondered, had humanity underestimated itself, or had her empire underestimated it? A loud alarm suddenly blared, cutting through the calm. Lights flashed red. A voice over the intercom announced, "Unauthorized breach detected in docking bay 7. All personnel respond." Elias tensed. Kliss and Vera stirred slightly but did not panic. Their calmness depended on him. If he moved too quickly, their trust would shatter. He whispered, "Stay with me." The Queen's voice came over the intercom, quiet but authoritative. "Remain in place. Do not intervene. Observation only." Elias nodded. He had no weapons. No authority. Nothing but his instincts and the fragile bond he had created. And yet in this small room on the edge of an alien warship, he felt a power unlike any other. The ability to protect and be trusted, even by the fiercest warriors in the galaxy. The twins' breathing remained steady. The world outside could burn, but here in this room they were safe. And Elias knew, for the first time, that sometimes strength was not measured in claws or firepower, but in the quiet courage to simply be calm in the storm. And in that moment, the galaxy began to shift quietly around a human's heartbeat. The alarms echoed through the maintenance decks like distant thunder. Red lights flashed, reflecting off the metal walls, creating long shadows that twisted and stretched. The ship shuddered slightly as the crew prepared for the unauthorized breach in docking bay 7. It was chaos by every standard, but inside the small room, Elias Mar remained still. Kliss and Vera stirred slightly on his chest but did not wake fully. Their breathing was uneven at first, but Elias' heartbeat was steady, slow, and even, and they soon matched it. "Stay calm," he whispered softly. "Everything is okay, you're safe." The words seemed unnecessary, yet somehow they mattered. The twins relaxed a little more, their claws retracting, their ears folding back. It was a small victory, but Elias understood the significance. He had no weapons, no authority, no army. All he had was his presence, and for now that was enough. Outside the room, Queen Sareth observed from a small security window. Her long claws rested lightly against the cold metal frame, but her mind was not on the alarms. It was on the human. She had witnessed soldiers break under far less pressure. But this human, this fragile creature could calm her daughters in the midst of crisis. That was something no weapon, no training, no command could achieve. "Do you understand what he is doing?" she asked one of her medics quietly. The medic shook her head. "Your radiance, it is unprecedented. He is not forcing them to comply. They are responding to him willingly, voluntarily. Their neural stress markers have dropped further than they were in the nursery sector. Even their battle instincts are suppressed." The Queen's eyes narrowed. That word suppressed was unusual. Her daughters were predators bred to fight, bred to dominate. And yet here their instincts were muted. She did not like it. And yet she could not deny it. The twins were safe, alive, calm. Inside the room, Elias shifted slightly. He could feel the twins adjusting to his movements, reacting to the smallest change in his posture. Every muscle, every twitch mattered. One wrong move could wake them, and then he could not control the outcome. But he trusted them. He had to. "Kliss, Vera, it's okay," he murmured, his voice low and steady. "I'm not going anywhere." Kliss made a soft sound, almost a purr. Vera's tail twitched slightly, then relaxed again. Elias exhaled slowly. "Good," he whispered. "That's it, just breathe, you're safe." The Queen's voice echoed softly through the intercom, startling him. "Human," she said, calm but firm, "you have been ordered to remain in place. Your actions are being observed. Do not interfere with the breach unless specifically instructed." Elias nodded, even though she could not see. "Understood," he said quietly. Outside, the alarms continued, but inside, the room remained a bubble of calm. The twins were alive, unharmed, and most importantly, they trusted him. And that trust was fragile. Hours passed. The red lights continued to flash intermittently. Reports came through the intercom. Minor breaches, security teams in pursuit, no immediate danger to the royal sectors. But each time the ship shuddered, Elias could feel the twins tense against him. He adjusted slightly, murmuring quiet reassurances. He had learned quickly that fear was contagious. If he panicked, the twins would react instantly. If he remained calm, their instincts would follow. His hands moved carefully over their small forms, just enough to let them know he was present. Not threatening, not commanding, just there. For the first time, he understood a truth the Queen had never admitted. Control did not always come from force. Sometimes it came from presence, from quiet, from patience. By mid-cycle, the alarms quieted slightly. The twins were sleeping again, their small bodies curled against his chest. Elias lay back on the cot, exhausted but careful not to shift too much. His body ached. He had not eaten or slept properly since the breach began, and yet he felt a strange sense of purpose. He was no soldier, no general, no warrior, and yet in this small room he had more power than anyone on the ship. Not because of weapons or technology, but because he had earned the trust of the most dangerous creatures in the Empire. The door hissed open, and Commander Jethval stepped inside again. He did not raise his weapon, but his eyes were sharp, scanning. "Your Radiance's orders," he said quietly. "Remain in observation mode, do not intervene." Elias nodded. "I understand." The commander studied the human for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he stepped closer. "Do you know what you are doing?" he asked quietly. Elias looked up at him. "I don't know exactly. I'm just trying to keep them calm. They're scared, they're confused, they need someone steady." Jethval frowned. "You are doing it well." Elias allowed himself a small, tired smile. "I hope so." The commander hesitated. "If the Queen knew how much influence you have over them, it could change everything." Elias frowned. "Change everything?" Jethval's eyes flicked to the twins. "They are not ordinary heirs. Their instincts are unparalleled. Their power is unmatched. And yet you have tamed them, not broken them, not forced them. Tamed, calm, that is dangerous." Elias considered this. Dangerous. Yes, it could be, but he was not trying to control them. He was trying to protect them, and that made all the difference. As the hours continued, the twins remained in their calm state. They ate a small ration of nutrient paste from Elias' hand, drank water carefully, and settled again. It was clear they were adjusting to him, learning from him, trusting him. Queen Sareth watched silently from her observation post. Her long tail swished behind her in thought. She had ruled for centuries, built an empire through conquest and fear. And yet here was a human who had done what she could not. He had earned the loyalty of the most dangerous creatures in her kingdom without a single threat, without a single command. It was unsettling, and yet she could not deny it. Later, the alarms ceased entirely. The breach had been contained. Security teams reported no casualties, no losses, no threats remaining in the docking bays. The Queen's voice came over the intercom once more. All personnel resume normal duties. Observation continues. Human remains with the heirs. Elias exhaled slowly. Relief washed over him. He had done what he had set out to do, protect them, keep them safe, keep them alive. Kliss shifted slightly, opening one amber eye. It studied him, then closed again. Vera hummed softly, a sound almost like a sigh of comfort. Elias smiled faintly, brushing a hand over their backs. "You're okay," he whispered. "Nothing happened." Outside, the Queen's thoughts were racing. She had always believed that strength came from dominance, from control, from fear. Yet here was a human, fragile, small, seemingly insignificant, and he held power over her daughters that no weapon, no command, no threat could match. She realized something else. This human was teaching her daughters something the Empire had never taught them. Patience, trust, empathy, calm, and that knowledge was dangerous. Hours passed. The maintenance decks grew quieter. The twins slept more deeply, their breathing steady. Elias adjusted slightly to ease any pressure. He was exhausted, but he did not dare rest fully. If he did, even the smallest mistake could wake them. He thought of his home planet, his family, his quiet life before the Empire's reach had taken him far from everything familiar. He could never have imagined being here on a warship, holding the most dangerous heirs of a galactic empire against the chaos of alarms and unknown threats. And yet he was here, alive, holding them, protecting them. A soft hiss of metal echoed down the corridor. Elias' eyes flicked toward the door. He tensed slightly, but the twins did not stir. He realized that they were no longer just reacting to him. They were trusting him, learning from him, adjusting to his presence as if it were the safest thing in the universe. Queen Sareth remained outside the observation post. She knew that the calm inside the room was more than luck or chance. It was deliberate, it was human, it was dangerous. And for the first time, she wondered if her empire had underestimated the very species it had once considered weak. The human in the room, small, fragile, tired, yet unshakable, was changing everything, and she would have to pay attention, because he held her daughters. And in the galaxy, that meant he held the future. The corridors of the Carvale were quiet, almost eerily so. The alarms had ceased, and most of the crew had returned to their routines. Yet the Queen did not move from her observation post. Her golden eyes, sharp and unyielding, watched the small room where her daughters slept. She had never paused for so long over the actions of a single human. Commander Jethval entered silently, bowing low. "Your Radiance," he said, voice careful. The twins remain calm. Human influence continues. Vital signs are normal. No aggressive responses have been recorded. The Queen's tail swept behind her slowly, a subtle gesture of agitation. "Continue?" she asked, her voice measured. "Yes, your Radiance," Jethval replied. The Queen did not respond. Her mind was alive with possibilities and dangers. She had faced countless enemies, from rebel colonies to hostile species, and none had unsettled her as this human had. He was fragile, weak, and yet her daughters obeyed his unspoken instructions. Not out of fear, not out of loyalty, but trust, trust. The word felt foreign in the corridors of power. Her empire had built itself on control, on obedience, on dominance. And yet here were two creatures, bred for power and aggression, choosing calm over fury because of a human's presence. A soft sound from inside the room caught her attention. The human stirred slightly, adjusting his posture. Kliss opened one amber eye, scanning him briefly before returning to sleep. Vera hummed quietly, a sound almost musical, and rested her head against his chest again. The Queen's fingers flexed involuntarily. She had always known her daughters were dangerous, unpredictable. Brilliant, and yet they trusted a human who had no rank, no weapon, no authority. "What do you intend to do?" Jethval asked cautiously. The Queen did not answer immediately. Her eyes remained fixed on the human, studying him. She considered every possibility. He could be hiding a weapon, a secret skill, a trap, anything, and yet nothing indicated deceit. He was simply calm, patient, steady. "Observe," she said finally. "Do nothing unless absolutely necessary." Jethval hesitated but obeyed. Hours passed. The twins remained asleep, occasionally stirring but quickly resettling against the human's chest. Elias shifted slightly, murmuring soft words barely audible. Each movement was careful, deliberate, each breath measured to avoid startling them. The queen's mind raced. If her daughters continued to rely on this human, what would it mean for the empire? What would it mean for her rule? She had always ruled through fear and respect, ensuring loyalty through strength. But here, strength alone was not enough. Influence, calm, empathy, qualities she had never valued, had achieved what armies could not. A small alarm sounded from the observation post. It was a minor alert, signaling a hull fluctuation in a distant sector. Nothing urgent, but enough to break her focus. She turned to Jethval. "Prepare a retrieval team," she ordered quietly. "If anything happens in the lower decks, I want immediate access." "Yes, your radiance." But even as he nodded, the queen's gaze returned to the room. Elias adjusted the twins slightly, ensuring they were comfortable. Kliss's tail twitched, then relaxed. Vera's small hands rested lightly on his chest, as if testing whether he would remain. The queen felt a strange emotion she had not felt in centuries: unease. It was one thing for a human to hold her daughters in a controlled environment. It was another for them to choose him over instinct. Minutes later, the door to the room hissed softly. One of the medics stepped in cautiously, carrying nutrient packs for the twins. Elias accepted them silently, offering small portions to Kliss and Vera. They ate slowly, carefully, without fear. "Your radiance," the medic whispered. "They are eating. They have never eaten calmly in the presence of anyone other than their mother." The queen did not respond immediately. She watched silently as Elias continued to feed them, hand steady, voice soft. Her daughters followed his movements, eyes bright but trusting. A sudden thought struck her. Could the human teach them? Could he shape their instincts, calm their aggression, influence their choices? If so, what would that mean for her empire? She had never considered the possibility that a single human could wield such power, not through weapons, not through strategy, but simply by being calm and steady. "Commander," she said finally, voice low, "continue observation. Record every detail, note any changes in behavior." "I want a complete analysis, no interference." Jethval nodded. "Understood, your radiance." The queen's mind wandered back to the human. Elias Mar was not a warrior. He had no implants, no enhancements, no military training. And yet, in the span of a few hours, he had tamed her daughters' instincts, calmed their aggression, and gained their trust. It was a dangerous kind of strength. Elias shifted again, murmuring softly to Kliss. She stretched slightly, yawned, and settled back against his chest. Vera adjusted, resting her head on his shoulder. He smiled faintly, exhausted but attentive. Outside the room, the queen considered her next move. She could remove the human, separate him from her daughters, and test whether their calm was genuine or dependent on him. But she hesitated. Removing him might provoke the very aggression she wished to avoid. She realized, with a mix of frustration and fascination, that this human had created something her empire had never achieved: voluntary compliance through trust. A new alert flashed on the observation post screen. Another breach, this time in the cargo bay. The queen's tail flicked nervously. She had underestimated the possibility of simultaneous threats, but she kept her focus on the human and her daughters. "Do not intervene," she said to Jethval. "Observe. The human's actions are the only thing keeping them safe right now." Hours passed. The twins slept more deeply, breathing synchronized with Elias' own. The human's calm influence persisted, even as distant alarms and ship vibrations continued. The queen considered the implications. If humans could achieve this level of influence over even the fiercest of her species, heirs, what did it mean for the future of the empire? Could a species so fragile truly shape the strongest? Elias shifted slightly, adjusting the twins once more. Kliss and Vera's claws brushed against his chest lightly but not aggressively. They had learned to trust him, to respond to his calmness rather than their instincts. The queen's thoughts were interrupted by a small sound. The twins stirred, waking slightly. Kliss opened her amber eyes, scanning Elias. Vera hummed softly, pressing against him. Elias whispered quietly, "It's okay. Stay with me. You're safe." The queen watched closely. For the first time, she observed her daughters willingly deferring to someone outside their species. And she realized something astonishing. The human's strength was not in conquest or force. It was in connection. Minutes later, the twins relaxed again, curling against him. Elias exhaled slowly, aware that even the smallest misstep could change everything. Outside, the queen made her decision. She would not remove the human, not yet. Not while the twins' trust remained intact. She knew it was a gamble. The human could be a threat, or he could be an ally. Either way, he had proven one undeniable truth. Humans could shape the galaxy not through weapons, but through trust and calm. The Queen stepped back from the observation post, her thoughts heavy. She would need to consider the future carefully. Her daughter's attachment to this human might change everything, her rule, the Empire, and the galaxy itself. For now, though, she remained silent. She watched, waited, and learned, because Elias Mar was no ordinary human. And Kliss and Vera were no ordinary heirs. And in the quiet maintenance decks of the Carvale, a fragile, unarmed human held power greater than any sword or fleet in the Empire, simply by being calm, patient, and trustworthy. The Queen knew one thing with certainty: the galaxy would never be the same again. The Carvale was alive with quiet energy. Even though the alarms had ceased, distant vibrations from the engines and cargo operations hummed through the corridors. It was easy to forget the chaos that had erupted hours earlier, but not for Elias Mar. He lay on the cot, Kliss and Vera curled against his chest, their small forms warm and steady. Their breathing was calm, synchronized with his own heartbeat. The twins were still asleep, or as close to sleep as warriors bred for combat could achieve. Elias had learned quickly: any sudden move, any raised voice, any sharp sound could startle them, and when they startled, they fought. They fought as if the fate of the galaxy depended on it. He adjusted slightly, careful not to wake them. His muscles ached from hours of holding them, but he could not relax fully. Every shift required thought, precision, and attention. Outside the small room, Queen Sareth watched silently from her observation post. She had been stationed there for hours, observing every detail. The human's patience, the twins' reactions, the subtle adjustments in posture, all of it fascinated her. She had seen generals fail under pressure, soldiers break when provoked, even entire planetary defenses crumble in the face of unexpected strategy. And yet this human remained calm. It was more than patience. It was something she had never understood fully: control without dominance. A sudden alert on her console drew her attention. Docking Bay 11 reported unauthorized movement, footsteps, voices, equipment clattering. The Queen's eyes narrowed. It was a small strike team, mercenaries perhaps, taking advantage of the previous chaos. "Commander," she said quietly over the comm, "prepare a response. Do not enter the lower decks yet. Let me observe first." "Yes, Your Radiance," Jethval replied, tension in his voice. The Queen's mind raced. She had to consider the human and her daughters. If these mercenaries breached the lower decks, Elias could be exposed. The twins might panic. The bond he had established could shatter in an instant. Elias, meanwhile, felt the subtle tremor in the ship. He knew something was happening before the alarms even sounded. Kliss stirred, one amber eye flicking open. Vera pressed closer to him, sensing the tension. He whispered softly, "Stay with me. Don't move. It's okay." The twins relaxed slightly, though their ears twitched, claws flexed, ready to react if needed. Elias kept his hands steady, careful not to make sudden movements. The door hissed open. 2 medics entered first, carrying supplies for the twins. Elias gave them a small nod, signaling that they could place the items down carefully. Then the Queen stepped inside. Her golden eyes scanned the room. "Human," she said softly, "if any danger presents itself, your choices in the next moments will matter greatly." "I understand," Elias replied. She studied him closely, weighing the possibilities. The twins were calm but alert. Their instincts were strong even when suppressed by trust. A sudden threat could awaken them. The human's ability to maintain calm in that situation could be the difference between order and catastrophe. Outside, the strike team moved carefully through the maintenance decks. They did not know that a human and 2 alien heirs were inside a small room, calm and alert. They had no idea the twins had the power to destroy them in seconds, or that Elias' steady presence could prevent such a disaster. Suddenly, one of the mercenaries tripped a wire near the room's entrance. A soft chime sounded, a warning the twins picked up instantly. Kliss shifted slightly, muscles tensing. Vera's tail flicked in a warning motion. Elias held his breath. He whispered softly, "Stay calm, trust me." The twins relaxed slightly again. The mercenaries were near, but they were outside the room. Elias could feel the tension radiating from them. Kliss's claws brushed lightly against his chest, a subtle reminder that she was aware, ready, but listening. The Queen, observing remotely, felt a pulse of both fear and fascination. No human should be able to maintain such control in the presence of her daughters during a potential breach. And yet, Elias had done it. Minutes passed. The strike team continued moving, unaware of the room's occupants. The twins remained calm, only slightly alert. Elias kept his voice low, humming quietly, a sound so soft that only the twins could pick up on it. "You are safe," he whispered repeatedly. "Nothing will hurt you while I am here." The sound of his voice seemed to synchronize their nervous systems even further. Kliss's breathing slowed, Vera's tail relaxed. The queen's eyes widened as she watched. This human was not commanding. He was teaching calm by example. Hours passed. The strike team eventually moved away from the area, unaware of how close disaster had come. The twins relaxed fully, curling against Elias' chest as if nothing had happened. He exhaled slowly, finally allowing himself a moment of relief. The queen stepped inside once more. She studied Elias, her expression unreadable. "You have maintained control under extreme pressure," she said. "That is unusual for your species." "I only try to keep them safe," Elias replied. "You understand," the queen said, "that your actions are being recorded. Every movement, every word, every breath is noted." "I understand," he said. The queen paused. "You are teaching them something," she said slowly. "Patience, trust, calm. They respond to you because they choose to, not because they fear. That is dangerous. That is power." Elias looked down at the twins. Kliss's amber eyes were closed, but her breathing was steady. Vera rested lightly, content and trusting. "I'm not teaching them anything except that they can feel safe," he said. The queen considered this. For centuries, she had taught her heirs through discipline, through fear, through control. And yet this human had achieved something she had not. The twins had chosen calm over aggression. They had chosen trust over instinct. "You are influencing them," she said quietly, almost to herself. "And that influence is stronger than many armies." Elias said nothing, only adjusted slightly to ensure they were comfortable. He was exhausted, but he knew he could not let his guard down. The twins' trust was fragile, easily broken by fear or sudden action. The queen left the room quietly, allowing him to continue his vigil. Her thoughts were filled with questions she had not considered in centuries. Could humans be this strong? Could they wield power not through force, but through calm, through connection, through trust? She did not have the answer, but she knew she needed to understand it, and fast. Elias, meanwhile, continued his watch. Kliss shifted slightly, then settled again. Vera hummed softly. He whispered once more, "I'm here. Nothing will hurt you." Outside, the galaxy continued to turn. Ships moved, alarms echoed in distant sectors, and conflicts brewed in far-off systems. But in this small room on the Carvale, the universe was quiet. Two alien heirs slept safely against a human's chest, protected not by weapons or armies, but by trust. And that trust would soon be tested again, because in the galaxy, nothing stayed calm forever. And when the next challenge arrived, Elias Mar would have to prove that his quiet strength could withstand the storm, not just for himself, but for the twins who had chosen him over instinct, over fear, over even their own training. In that moment, he understood something important. Strength was not measured in claws, teeth, or firepower. Strength was measured in patience, in calm, in trust, and in the courage to remain steady when the world around you was falling apart. And Elias Mar had more strength than anyone had realized. The Carvale hummed quietly as it drifted through space, its massive hull reflecting the pale light of a distant star. The galaxy was vast, full of conflict, conquest, and power struggles. But in one small room on the lower decks, a fragile human held the most powerful heirs of an empire against the chaos of the universe. Elias Mar sat on the cot, Kliss and Vera curled against his chest, their breathing calm and even. Hours had passed since the last minor disturbance in the ship, and yet he remained vigilant. Every twitch, every subtle movement of the twins mattered. Their trust was fragile, and he could not afford to break it. Outside, Queen Sareth observed silently from her station. She had not left. Her golden eyes were sharp, calculating, and alive with a mix of fascination and unease. In centuries of rule, she had never encountered a human capable of holding her daughter's trust so completely. Her empire had been built on fear, loyalty, and dominance, yet this small, fragile being, unarmed, untrained, ordinary in appearance, had achieved what no army could. Suddenly, a warning alarm blared across the ship. The lights flashed red. Sensors indicated a significant breach in the upper decks. The Queen's tail flicked sharply behind her. Commander Jethval, she said quietly, what is happening? Unknown, your radiance, he replied. It appears to be an external attack. Shields are holding, but they may not last long. Elias felt the ship shudder slightly. The twins stirred immediately, ears flicking, tails coiling defensively. He murmured softly, stay calm. Nothing will hurt you while I am here. Kliss and Vera responded instantly. Their breathing slowed, their claws relaxed. Even in the presence of an unknown threat, they trusted him. The queen watched carefully, her mind racing. This human's influence over her daughters was absolute in a way she had never imagined. He did not command them, he did not fight. He simply remained calm, and they mirrored that calm. A sudden blast shook the ship. Lights flickered. The twins stirred slightly but did not panic. Elias whispered softly again, I'm right here. Nothing will happen to you. Outside, the queen's voice was steady over the intercom. All personnel maintain position. Do not engage unless necessary. Observation continues. Elias understood. He was alone in the room with the twins, unarmed, facing a threat that could come from any direction. Yet he did not move in panic. He focused on the twins, keeping his breathing steady, his voice low, his hands gentle. Minutes passed. The breach alarms persisted, but the twins remained calm. They trusted him. They had chosen him over instinct, over fear, over their own training. Then the door hissed open. One of the Queen's medics entered carefully, followed by Commander Jethval. Their expressions were tense. Your radiance, the commander said quietly. The twins are calm despite the alarms. The human's influence continues. The Queen remained silent. She was studying Elias, her thoughts deep and complicated. A fragile human, untrained, unarmed, holding her daughter's trust even in the face of danger. That was power unlike any she had seen. Human, she said finally, her voice soft but commanding, understand this, you have the trust of my heirs. That trust is extraordinary. It is dangerous, and it may determine the future of this empire. Elias nodded, still careful not to disturb the twins. I understand. The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then she stepped closer, her presence filling the room. Do you know what this means? She asked. I think so, Elias replied softly. It means they feel safe with me, that they trust me. That's all I'm doing, keeping them safe. The Queen's tail twitched thoughtfully. She realized that the human had achieved something no weapon, no fleet, no empire could. He had created loyalty and calm through trust, not fear. Very well, she said finally. Observe carefully. The breach is contained elsewhere. You will remain with the twins, and if this bond remains, you may change the course of my empire. Elias did not fully understand the weight of her words. He only knew that his responsibility was to the twins, to keep them safe, to remain calm, steady, and trustworthy. Hours later, the breach alerts ended. The threat had been neutralized, the ship secured. The twins slept again, curling closer to Elias. He adjusted slightly to ease pressure, murmuring softly, It's over. You're safe now. Kliss stirred briefly, pressing her head against his chest. Vera hummed softly, a sound of comfort and recognition. Elias smiled faintly, exhausted but relieved. Outside, the Queen made her decision. She would not remove the human from her daughters, not now, not ever. He had proven his value in a way no soldier, no weapon, no commander could. He had earned something the Queen could not give or take, the complete trust of her heirs. She realized something profound. Humans were stronger than she had believed, not in combat, not in strategy. Not in conquest, but in connection, calm, and influence. And if the Empire ignored that, it would be a mistake it could never recover from. In the quiet of the room, Elias continued his vigil. The twins shifted slightly but remained curled against him. He understood, finally, that strength was not about dominance or power. It was about presence, trust, and courage in the face of uncertainty. The Queen observed silently, her mind turning. She would need to adapt, to understand, to accept that a human, small, fragile, ordinary, had done something extraordinary. And in doing so, he had rewritten the rules of her empire. Hours later, as the ship drifted through the vast expanse of space, the twins stirred fully awake. Kliss opened her amber eyes, scanning the room, then Elias. Vera lifted her head, looking up at him with a quiet curiosity. Elias smiled gently. You're safe, he whispered. Nothing will hurt you. The twins responded by curling closer, not out of fear, not out of obligation, but out of choice. Queen Sareth stepped into the room quietly, her presence commanding yet calm. She looked at the human, then at her daughters. For the first time in centuries, she saw something she had never expected. the future of her empire, shaped not by fear but by trust. "You have done what I could not," the queen said softly, almost to herself. "You have earned their loyalty without a command, without a weapon, without force." Elias nodded. "I'm just keeping them safe." "And yet," she replied, "that is enough to change everything." Outside, the galaxy continued its endless conflicts, wars, and schemes. But in this small room on the lower decks of the Carvale, the universe had shifted. Two alien heirs trusted a human. A fragile, ordinary human had demonstrated that strength could come from patience, calm, and connection, not from weapons or power. The queen took a deep breath. She knew that the empire would have to change. She knew that the galaxy would have to respect this fragile species in a new way. And she knew, finally, that the human holding her daughters on a simple cot in the maintenance decks had achieved something extraordinary. He had not conquered. He had not commanded. He had only been calm, steady, and trustworthy, and that, the queen realized, was more powerful than any army in the stars. Elias adjusted slightly, feeling the twins shift, and whispered once more, "You're safe. I'm not going anywhere." And in that moment, the galaxy, the queen, and the twins all understood something simple and profound. Sometimes, true strength is not measured in claws, teeth, or fleets of ships. It is measured in trust, calm, and the courage to protect without fear. The queen turned to leave, her mind racing with possibilities. The twins had chosen a human over instinct, over fear, over even their own training. She would have to respect that choice. And Elias Mar, the ordinary human, finally understood the weight of what he had done. He had changed the fate of two heirs, the course of an empire, and perhaps, in some small way, the galaxy itself. And the stars would never be the same again.